Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Warhammer 40k Darktide figures that recently came out. On the left we have the Traitor Guard, and on the right we have the Veteran Guardsman. These are obviously a little bit different than the other Warhammer figures from the McFarlane toys, and that they're just, you know, they're from obviously a different series. And so they have kind of a different look. They're not Space Marines, obviously. There's a little more like facial detail to them. But it's kind of a different, obviously different series. So we're gonna open them up, take a look at them. They look pretty cool. I think even if you're not like a Warhammer fan, you just like collecting, you know, figures. They look really good in box. So let's open them up and see how good they look out of box. All right, here they are out of the box, and I can say just from getting them out of the packaging, there's probably going to be one or two things we'll have to talk about. So let's go ahead and let's start with the Veteran Guardsman. So the overall design, I mean, I like it. It doesn't seem as detailed, I guess, as I would expect, or I would hope for it to be. One thing I will say I do like is I like that the knee pads, if he's just standing, you know, straight up and down, they cover the articulation point, the knee joint here, which is good. Because when figures don't do that, and it's just kind of a pet peeve of mine, just seeing that open, you can see the socket. And just the joint, and it just looks kind of cheap that way. So I like the knee pad, or knee pads. Let's take them off the disc. Overall, I mean, this kind of strikes me as just like he's an average figure. And that's not knocking the design. I realize, you know, you have a design to go off of. Obviously the Darktide game itself, which I think there's a new one coming out next year, or I have to look it up, but I get the design they're going for, and it is kind of, it does follow that aesthetic, I guess you would say. It's not just, you know, classic Warhammer 40k, but you can't help but compare it to that, or at least I can't. So I don't know, like, just the way it looks, it's not bad, but there are a few things that I do kind of want to talk about. One thing, this might be a minor thing, I don't even know if I can get it in camera because it's so small, but obviously, as you probably know, they come with, like, in the packaging, they come with bands like around the chest, usually around the wrists, around the shoulders, sometimes around the knees and around the ankles to hold them in place. For some reason, I don't know if it's just the material they use. Let's see if I can get it close up. It's gonna be hard to see, but there's a very light, like, I don't know if it's a scratch, just where the band was kind of holding him in, and it's just kind of there now. Like I said, it's not huge. You can only see it if you're like me and you know it's there and you're looking for it now, or if it's in the right lighting, you can kind of see it. So that's kind of weird. I haven't seen that before, but again, that's not a big deal. The other thing I would say is that a lot of the joints are very, very stiff, to the point to where you almost feel like you're going to break it. The knees aren't as bad. The ankles aren't as bad. But the toe part is almost impossible to really move up and down. And I just feel like it's going to break. Also, depending on how you turn the arm, the joint right here is very visible, which, you know, again, just a small thing, because it's a figure, right? They have to have those, otherwise it doesn't move. It's what separates the figures from the figurines, I guess you'd say. So yeah, I mean, the color is the other thing. Like, I get that's you know, it's how he's supposed to look. But I kind of wish they would have did at least maybe a little more detail, maybe a little more shading on some parts, because if you look at him from far away, he just looks straight. It's just like dark gray and black. But but it's actually like a really dark green. If you look at it really closely, it just doesn't stand out as well. Also, again, another, you know, small pet peeve of mine is the shoulder. You can kind of like see underneath, and again, if the detail is there underneath, it's not a big deal. But you can just see the ball joint underneath, and it's very loose right here. Let's see if I can get that in the camera. You see that part moving? It's just kind of sitting there. Like I think it's just to kind of give the illusion that the you know, of armor underneath there, but it's very kind of very loose. The shoulder pad is also loose, which again can be good and bad depending on how you want to move them. But it doesn't move up very well. Like this is as far as it can move up, just because the pauldron kind of, you know, it hits the rest of the body. It's the strap he has. So there's not a lot of movement. And the movement that there is feels kind of loose. Like right here, it just, I don't know what it is. But it is what it is. The elbow and the wrists are good. I mean, the wrist, you know, rotates all the way around, which is good. Elbow doesn't pivot, but you know, you can move it up and down, which is fine. Shoulder, again, besides the stuff I already mentioned, it moves really good. It's very fluid movement. And then, you know, the head is a little stiff. It's not too bad, but it almost feels like, I don't know, like it feels like it's not, not a word. I don't want to word it and be like too harsh on it, but it feels kind of hollow. The movement just feels kind of hollow. Like it doesn't click, it doesn't snap. It's just kind of, it just moves however you want, which I guess is good depending on how you want to pose it, but it does not move up and down at all. Left to right? Yeah. Up and down? No. And I guess I don't see why not, because I mean, there's room on the back. Like you could easily, you know, just put like a joint in there to have him move, you know, move his head back. But he doesn't have that. So that was, you know, it's kind of another bummer. Also, he doesn't rotate at the wrist, or at the waist very well. Partially, I don't even know if it's just from like the articulation point, but the straps, which you can't take off, by the way, these are, as you can see, they're just kind of connected right down here at the belt, which is just, it's permanently on him. They move a little bit on the shoulders to kind of give the illusion of it being like a separate accessory, but it's just not. It's just, he's just glued into it, which makes moving him left to right almost impossible. And then the strange thing is that they have it here so where you should be able to move him more. As you can see back here, this part is separate from like his lower back. And so it seems like if you were to like snip these straps off, you'd have more control over how you pose him, which it's not a good idea, obviously. You just either don't have the snaps there, or maybe have them, you know, like disconnect right here so he can still move, or just have them as kind of like a separate accessory. I don't know. But I think there's probably a better way to handle that. So, I mean, yeah, that's not my favorite figure, not my favorite McFarlane. And it's certainly not my favorite Warhammer. I'm like I said, I still like the design. I get you have, you know, that's how he's supposed to look. But yeah, I think they just maybe could have put a little more time into it as to how he was put together, because it seems like maybe they put like a basic figure together and then put all this other stuff on top of it, which took away a lot of the features from the basic figure, like rotating here at the waist, or, you know, moving the shoulders up. Because even on the you know, like the Space Marines from those Warhammer figures, there's still movement in the shoulder. Like the shoulders are big, but you can still move them. I think they're like separate. Like you can just pop them off if you want to, and then pop them right back on. But there seems like there's more movement in that, which is strange that a bulkier character like the Space Marines actually have a lot better movement than just kind of like just a guy in some, you know, military type clothing. Like it feels like you should be a little more flexible. But yeah. So let's go ahead and look at the other one. This is the veteran Guardsman, by the way. And so now we're going to Pop him on the stand. Have him take a... You can sit right there. So this is the Traitor guard. So I like the design a little better. Honestly, the face, let's see if I can get it closer so you can kind of see. Apologies for the camera not focusing too well. I actually might be investing in, so maybe going like a 4K camera. Just because I like doing the close-ups of these to kind of show the details, and that might work a little better. But like if you were to just show me this character, with no packaging or anything, I would say, well, it kind of looks like something out of like Castle Wolfenstein. Because he kind of does. And just because the like the military coat he has, and then just the face and the helmet, it just looks like something you'd find in Castle Wolfenstein, which I'm all for. That's great. That's one way to get me to buy the toy, is to kind of go with, you know, that kind of look. And I like a lot of the like the bracers are actually very sharp. Like there's a little bit of flexibility in them, but they have a bit of an edge on them, which is fine. But I really like the shoulder pad right here. Again, just because of the spikes and the chains. I really wish the chains did what a lot of the older Spawn figures did, where it was like actually like it looked like chrome, but it was just plastic, like a shiny plastic, like a real chain. I wish it kind of had that underneath instead of just, you know, the gray rubbery plastic underneath. I think that would have been huge, at least for me. But yeah, the other thing is he has this emblem. See if I can move his gun out of the way. He has this emblem on his chest, and again, apologies, it's a little bit blurry. But if you look closely at it, it looks like it was painted in kind of a hurry. I'm not gonna knock, you know, the people who make these toys, because I realize you have to, you know, you're mass producing something. But usually, you know, when stuff is kind of like painted on, like one thing that comes to mind is like the clown from Spawn, the newer one that came out. The paint on the face paint that he has looks great. Like it just looks really smooth, really clear, really detailed. It looks great. Like even the colors they picked they just pop, especially in the right lighting. But this honestly looks like they took a brush and, you know, painted a couple circles, drew a couple arrows into it, because you can kind of see, actually I don't know if you can kind of see in the camera, but you can kind of see where the brush, one of the bristles kind of split off, and did kind of its own little line along the side here, and the arrows are kind of different sizes. In fact, this one doesn't even look like an arrow. It doesn't look very, very detailed. So I kind of wish that was a little cleaner. The other thing is, for some reason, I know it's not a grenade, but this explosive thing, I can't remember what they're called. I'm sorry, I'm not a war buff or weapons buff historian guy. But they chose like a really flimsy plastic for this part. And so before I even got out of the packaging, this part is just kind of bent. I mean, I kind of understand, because you know, he has this kind of like pouch on the side here. But he has two more on the back that are also just flimsy, and they're kind of warped, especially this one right here. I don't know why they chose to go with such a flimsy plastic for this bottom part. The top part feels fine, but this bottom part is just easily warped. And it just, I have some, you know, like accessories that come with some of the figures where they were just, you know, put in the package. The packaging wasn't perfect. They got crinkled, and so it kind of bent some of the like barrels of the guns. And they're just permanently warped. Like you can't really fix them. They're just that way now. So I kind of like if they would have did what they did with this gun here, because this gun is very stiff plastic. Like you're not bending that. So I kind of wish they would have did something like that instead of just this, you know, rubbery, flimsy piece. But yeah, that's just kind of a minor gripe. Again, I do like the knee pads here. They look good. They fit the overall uniform he's got, and they cover that ugly joint. But if you do bend it, obviously you do see the joint kind of makes the leg look a little jank. And he also has the same problem on the toe part, which is supposed to move in case you want to do like, he's standing on the back for that extra detail. But the toe part on both of these are they're so stiff. Like I'm almost afraid to move it because it feels like it's just gonna pop off. And The ankle, this is the same on the other one. I don't know if I mentioned it. It moves good up and down. There's no pivot to it. Well, there's a little bit of pivot to it. But if you do, it kind of forces this armor down here to flare out. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a minor gripe. But then there's no, like there's very little movement with the hip. One thing I do like, obviously, as I mentioned before, is the armor, like the texture does continue underneath the jacket, which is good. That continuity and the detail is good. But you can't rotate the hip at all. You can't rotate it at the knee. You can just up and down here, and that's kind of it. The head, let's see what the head. Oh man, this is, I don't know if you can hear that, but it does not want to turn. Yeah, this is about as much movement as you get in the neck. And then the helmet, which I'm just now realizing is very squishy. Again, you know what, with some of the older McFarlane toys, especially the ones in the Spawn series, they don't do it so much now, but like some of this would be like actual fabric, like actual hair or fur or something, whereas now it's just kind of like a, it's just kind of a tough plastic, which looks like the way it's connected, if you were to move it too much, it feels like it would just kind of tear off right there, which is unfortunate. Not going to mess with it too much. I wish they put a little more detail, especially, like I said, in the chains and in the head. I think those are the most important parts, at least on some of the standard characters, the humanoid characters. But yeah, the paint job on the face, I wish I could get it closer without it being so blurry. Again, we'll probably have to do like a better camera in the near future. But the paint job on the face is really good. It's really good. Just the shading they did around the lips, and the nose, and the eyes, and just the eyes themselves are kind of like this dead gray color, which is impressive considering how small they are. But it's really crisp for a paint job. A paint job that small, I should say. And yeah. Again, let's see if this one moves a little better. He moves a little better on the torso. See, the other one that we just looked at, the one right there, should be able to move like this, but those shoulder straps hold him in place. I like the strap that they did with this guy. It is part of his armor, like it's not separate. There's no movement in it. It's literally just part of him. But at least it allows for, movement. So, I mean, that's good. Honestly, if I had to pick, I would say this one's probably the better one, in my opinion. But yeah, I like I said, this isn't like a stay away type of review, like thumbs down. It's just these are definitely not the highest quality that you would come to expect from like McFarlane or any of the big, detail collectible companies. It seems kind of like a step down from that. But yeah, I mean, if you like Warhammer, one thing also we'll point out that I do like is it does have this emblem that's on his chest is also engraved in the gun right here. I do like that they engraved it. Can't get it too close. I do like that they engraved it. I kind of wish they would have gave it a little more texture, or it's even this like this wrap around the bottom here. I wish they would have put a little more painting or detail into that, because right now it's just silver and black. There's like no battle worn wear and tear. I get, like there's no battle damage, I guess is what I'd say. And even the barrel is just gray. So I think they could have did a little better with that. And yeah, and one last, I guess, going back to just the way these explode, again, I don't know what they're called. They're kind of like grenades, right? You throw these. I remember throwing these in like Castle Wolfenstein. I wish they didn't just blend in with the satchels and the belt and everything, because it's all just one color. There's like no detail to this. Also, that seam right there. I'm a stickler for the seams. That's a pretty big seam right there. It's got a little bit of an edge to it. And then like these satchels or pockets or whatever you want to call them down here just blend in with the leg. Like it's just part of the leg, and it's just painted the same color. I think they could have did a little more detail on those. That's kind of a bummer, to be honest, because they look like they could have been cool. I mean, they are cool, right? They look cool, especially this guy. That face is just, it's cool. It kind of looks like something from like an Iron Maiden album cover. But anyway, I think they just could use a little more detail, a little more thought as to movement and stuff like that, and they would have been a lot better. Stuff like that would have been a lot better. But not every figure can be a 10, right? You're gonna get some that just they're put out for, you know, marketing purposes or whatever. And I'm not saying these are just put out in a hurry for marketing purposes, but that's how any business goes, right? Not everything's going to be a win. And in my opinion, these are kind of just like maybe a step down. If you like Warhammer, especially if you like, you know, Darktide, and you're psyched for I think it's Darktide 2 that's coming out, right? So many Warhammer games coming out, and there's so many that are already out. It's so hard for me to keep track. But if that's your thing, get them. You know, they're not bad. If you're a Warhammer fan, obviously you can look at them. You can be like, yeah, it's definitely a Warhammer. But for like, you know, collecting standpoint, they're not as impressive as I guess I've come to expect. Maybe I'm spoiled. I don't know. You could let me know. Yeah, that's probably gonna do it. You can let me know what you guys think of these. I'm curious as to how many other Darktide ones they're going to make, because Darktide has a lot of cool designs in it as far as enemies and stuff goes. So I'd love to see more, especially like bigger ones, some of like the bigger enemies and whatnot. And these ones are just it's a good starting spot, I guess, to kind of get people into the Darktide universe. So yeah. Do with that what you will. And gonna end the video here. As always, like and subscribe, click the bell, all that fun stuff. And we'll look to have another one of these out each week, either Monday or Tuesday. It kind of depends on you know, when I'm able to get one of these out. But look for them, you know, each week. And lots of fun stuff coming on the horizon. Lots of stuff to look forward to. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.